Yeah, welcome, and I'm glad that there's a range from people who haven't started yet to people who's got full head and foot into the business and so on. Every one of you will get something. The problem is with researching pigs is that you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know what to research. Every time I have a course like this, people go away and they say, I've got 50 times more questions now than I had before because I didn't even know that existed. Now I've got questions about that I didn't even know that existed. So you by the end of today, you'll have more questions than you came with and so on. But you'll see the bigger picture and you know what to research, what to get more information on and so on. Yeah, as I'm sure quite a few of you can attest to and so on, if you blunder into pig farming, you're gonna pay class fees. Whether you pay it up front or behind, it's gonna cost you in mistakes. And the main thing is you're gonna lose is time. But you're going to come a year later and you say, oh, shit, these pigs aren't growing, sell them, get rid of them, get better breeding stock, and then start all over again. So you've lost a year of time and so on. So learn the right thing the first time and do it right. And yes, it's going to cost you a bit of class fees in the beginning, but I promise you it's going to be 10 times less than making the mistake and the costs involved with that. So prepare right, do the research, start right, good breeding stock, good health, good feed, and enough of it, and good management skills and so on. So the thing is, we all got family farms, cattle and sheep and so on. You know a little bit about that, you grew up with it and so on. Pigs is from the moon, it's space age, there's nothing here, and the bit that's here is here generally isn't worth following because they're doing it wrong anyway, and they can barely make a living and so on. So congratulations to people who started and who started right. Condolences to the ones who started and started wrong and so on, but you are on the right track now. And the guys who are here, even if you're from Buang, they teach you the theory, but they don't give you the experience that goes with it and so on. I've been here in this business 34 years and so on, and I've got a BSc and so on. I'm not going to baffle you with bull and baffle you with science and so on. I'm going to make it as practical and so on as possible. But guys, so today we're sort of focusing, Dr. Mbatsi is going to do the health bit, and guys, he is one of the few pigs vets that know the front end from the back end of a pig in Botswana. Him and his business partner, his business partner also studied in London and so on. But most pigs, most vets do not know the front end from the back end of a pig and so on. So you go to people who know what they're talking about when they're speaking about pigs, because they are not cattle and they're not sheep and so on. So guys, so I'm going to zoom in on the feeding things today. Now, guys, to look at profitability and so on, the most difficult thing to calculate is the feed consumption of pigs. You want to do your sums and how much does a pig eat per day, and on Facebook you ask that and you'll get anything from 1 kilo twice a day to 4 kilos a day, anything in between, but it doesn't tell you whether the pig was this size or that size. That doesn't give you real information and so on. I developed a spreadsheet that will calculate the right amount of food for each class and the total and the value of that and so on. And then we added other costs, your labor and your veterinary bills and all the other costs and so on, which are variables that you can change, and it gives you an answer at the end, what is your profit per pig per month, per year, and so on. So you can do it and so on, but it's also based on healthy pigs, good genetic pigs, and good management skills and so on. But so what we're going to do is what I did was I put the following data into the spreadsheet, leaving all the other variables the same and just changing one of those. So I started with the weaning age of the piglets at 20 age, which is sort of industry standard. If you go 3 weeks, unless you've got ideal environmentally controlled conditions and so on, your piglets are going to get scoury and fall off the wagon. If you go 5 and 6 weeks, then it's starting costing you money and so on. I'll show you how much it costs you to wean a week later or 2 weeks later than 4 weeks and so on. But 4 weeks is industry standard. So what I did was I left everything the same and I just started with 28 weeks. Then I left everything the same and I just made that variable, 35 days or 5 weeks, and then 6 weeks and so on. And I'm going to show you how much that 1 week increment cost you financially. Then I did the same. I left everything the same. Left it at 28 days. And then, so this is the remating period, the time from the time that you wean the sow till she gets remated. Now, I wean on a Thursday morning. Monday morning, 90% of the sows are back on heat. I mate them Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, done, dusted. If they by some chance don't come on Monday morning, by Monday afternoon, you can just about guarantee that they're on Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. So Mondays and Tuesdays are mating days. Guys, the beauty of pig farming is firstly you're not dependent on those little wet thingies falling from the sky. The second thing is that it's a factory. Every Monday is the same jobs. You don't have to get up Monday morning. What shall I do today? You know, Tuesdays is mating days. Thursdays is weaning days. Now, the pregnancy of a sow is 114, 115 days. 114 if you're taking the Tuesday, the last mating, or if you're taking the first mating at Monday, then it's 115 days. But if you work that out, it's 16 weeks and 2 days, which means if they were mated on Monday, they farrow on Wednesday. If they were mated on Tuesday, they farrow on Thursday. So Wednesday, Thursdays are mating days. So all your attention is on the farrowing unit and so on. But every Monday you do the same jobs. Every Tuesdays you do the same jobs. Every Thursday, so the whole team, after a short time, know exactly what happens on what day. If you train them in that job, they get competent in it, and so on. So now, as I said, that I'm averaging about 4 days into farrowing period. Now, especially when you're weaning at 5 or 6 weeks and so on, and not feeding the sow optimally and so on, a sow will always lose weight during lactation. There's no ways, if it's a wild pig and she's got 3 piglets and so on, yes, you can do that without losing a lot of weight, but you don't want 3 or 4 pigs, you want 10 or 12. She will lose weight. So you've got to feed her the maximum amount to minimize that weight loss. The days that's in between farrowings is almost solely dependent on body condition, and if she drops 40 kilos, there's no way she will come on in 4 days. So now you've got 21 days that you're feeding her that she's not producing anything. That's a cost to you. So if she skips the first heat, she's now, so I did the same thing. I left it at 28 days, but with a 4 day, 25 day, 64 days, 70, so it's skipping 1 heat, 2 heat, 3 heats, and now that affects your pocket and so on. And then the other thing that I changed was I left everything at 28 days, 4 day into farrowing period, and then 8 piglets per litter, 9 piglets per litter, 10. Now this is marketed, that is not born. You know, on Facebook everyone says, 14 piglets. Oh yeah, everyone, yeah, that's great, guy. They don't ask the day after when the 3 was overlaid overnight, or 4, or savaged, and so on, or how many you market. They put that 14 up, but they be quiet about the rest. And all you see is 14, and then you get your first litter and you say, oh, it's only 7, what's going on, or 2 or 3 and so on. Then you're very surprised and you say, oh shit, what am I doing wrong and so on. And your litter size from the first litter to the second, to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth is going up every time. Why? Because the sow gets bigger, more space to put babies in, more back fat to milk from on her back and so on. Size matters. But yeah, nobody tells you these kind of things and so on. You're expecting 14 babies and all of a sudden you get 5 or 7 and so on. So I've run all of these things, and all of this, guys, was done at Tolo's feed prices. Okay, so that's the actual feed prices, and it's done at 90 kilo carcass weight, which is about 125 kilos live weight, and at Sen's bacon price at the moment of 35. Well, even the pork they're paying that for.
Just this
Yep.
90 kilo carcass. This is after how many months of feeding?
If you're doing it right, 6 months. 5.5, 6 months. I'll show you the growth rates, what they should achieve, what industry standards are just now. Okay, so on top of that, so now I've worked out the exact amount of food, and then we add electricity and labor and veterinary and slaughter fees and breeding stock, and so that all your other running expenses to that. So all of that stays the same, and I'm just changing one variable at a time so we can isolate it and see if I've got 8 pigs and now I've got 9, how much is that worth? And I'll tell you why I'm doing that just now. Okay, so we get all the variables in there as well. And so yes, here are the results now. Can you at the back sort of see reasonably? Okay, I'm going to share this, I'm going to put this PowerPoint on that I share with you as well on your emails and so on. But okay, so what I've done is on the first run I've put in a 28-day weaning and 4-day into, so it's weaning on a Thursday, coming on heat on Monday and getting mated and pregnant again. Okay, at 8 piglets per litter. Yearly average yearly income per pig, and the amount of piglets and so on. So if you've got 8 piglets and they're farrowing 2.48 times a year, how do I get to that? It's that plus 115 divided by 365.
Slow down to us.
That's right, okay? Okay, so the litters per sow per year, how many times can a sow farrow per year? If you ask it on Facebook, they'll say 2.
All right.
The right answer is, if you're weaning at 4 weeks, so that's 28 days, plus it takes you 4 days to get them remated, and so on, so that's now 32, and you add that to 115, and you divide it by 365, it gives you 2.48 litres per sow per year. Okay, and at 8 piglets. So now you're making about 374,000 a year. Okay. Getting one, okay, so let me just backtrack a bit. Guys, food is not, cheap food is not cheap if it doesn't make your pigs grow. If somebody, I've seen a guy advertising watermelons on the, and I blocked them out because they're just wasting my time. At 10 pula a watermelon. Oh yeah, that's cheap. Now you go with your pickup and so on, and you load a ton of watermelons on the back. Watermelons has got 6% solids and so on, so 96% water. So on that ton of food, you've got 60 kilos of food on your back actually. And you've driven 100 k's to go and fetch it and 100 k's back and so on. If you just take your petrol and so on, now you pay 10 pula, so you paid 10 times, how many watermelons can you put in a ton and so on, and you work out it costs you about 4,000 pula per kilogram. Oh shit, I can buy maize and I can feed them pure soya for that price and so on. It's not cheap. And then that 6% has got so much fiber, well, if you take the water off, what's left is mainly fiber and sugar and so on, and that doesn't make your pigs grow either. We'll talk about fiber intensively and so on. But the difference, so trying to save a cent on 10 cents or 10 pula on a bag of food, if it doesn't make your pigs grow, if you concentrate, hire a lady. Women are fantastic in piggeries and so on, in the farrowing unit. They've got the mothering abilities, they know what to do and so on. They'll stand there and wait for that sow and take the baby and rub him and put him on the teat. And, they'll do that the whole day long. It's in their genes and so on. Women are fantastic in piggeries and so on. Also, they've got thin arms, which helps a lot when you've got to pull babies and so on. If you employed one extra lady just to do that, and you can now average 9 piglets, you've made 26,000 pula extra that year. That pays her salary twice over. How many times over? And so on. So the difference between having 8 piglets or 10 piglets is, what's that? 150,000 extra a year. Just by having one more piglet. Same everything here, just one more piglet, that's the price, the profit difference. Okay, so then I still left it at 4 weeks here, but skipping the first heat. So now it takes me 35 days to get her mated again. Okay, so this is 5-week weaning, 6-week weanings. These are all 6-week weanings. Now, looking at the difference between, so the same amount of piglets per litter. The difference between just an extra week, difference between those two is how much? 25,000. Just by shortening your weaning period. Now, if you're shortening your weaning period and so on, firstly, the sow aren't being drunk on for an extra week, which saves on her back fat and so on. So she's in a better condition, much more likely to get on heat within 4 days and so on. But you also got to look at the babies. They've got to be around 7 kilos to wean them. Otherwise, if they're too small, they go shitty and then they die on you and so on. Now, to overcome that, firstly, you've got to feed that sow as much as she can eat. These guys say you're overfeeding your sows while they're lactating. You can never overfeed your sows while they're lactating. They weren't built to have 15 babies and so on. They were built to have 3, 4 out there in the wild. You want 15, you've got to feed her for 15. And so on. Now, the right feeding rate for lactating sows is 2 kilos for maintenance, plus a half a kilo per piglet that she suckles. So if she has 10 babies that she's drinking from her, that's 5 kilos plus the 2, that's 7 kilos a day that you're feeding her. And sows, now, especially with gilts, they can't quite eat 7 kilos, so they lose more weight. And we'll talk about the mating weights just now as well. But they're going to lose more weight during lactation as a percentage of their body weight and so on as well. And now, let's do that now. Guys, do not mate on age. People ask on Facebook, what's the age should I mate them, and it's anything from 6, 7, 8, 5 and so on. But most guys, they look at the age, but at 6 months most guys pigs are this size still, they're barely pork weight, and then they mate them. Why is it important to mate on weight, not on age? Okay, guys, as I said, size matters. If the piggy is this size, her womb is this size, you cannot fit 15 babies in it, first thing. Secondly, she hasn't got the reserves on her back to milk from. Remember, she cannot eat enough. There's not enough space in the room, and of that size, the stomach is smaller as well. She cannot eat enough to not lose weight during lactation. But you've got to minimize it. So you've got to feed her ad lib. Ad lib, guys, means as much as they can eat, as they will eat freely, and so on. So a gilt needs to be at least 120 kilos before you even think about mating her. Then when she comes on heat, if you fed her properly, she won't come on heat before then either, and so on. Once she comes on heat, don't just mate her the first time that she comes around. Mate on the 3rd heat. Why is that? There's an economic advantage in waiting for the 2nd, 3rd heat. Why? Because their hormones, look, the first heat, this is the first time it's happened, that the hormone system isn't working properly, it's new, she doesn't know what's going on, she's stressed out of her mind, she eats half the babies and so on. Her hormone system isn't developed yet. Often they come on heat the first time and they're on heat, but they don't ovulate, so they can't get pregnant. But if you do mate them on that first heat, you can if they do get pregnant, you can expect 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 babies if you're lucky. 2nd heat, you're looking at 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe. If you wait for the 3rd heat, you can get 12, 13, 14 born alive, I'm talking about now. Okay, so there is an economic advantage in waiting for the 3rd heat and so on. But now, you've mated her at 120. She has had 2 cycles, so the system is working, that everything is now running, everything knowing where to go, and so on. The 3rd thing is, she's now got some reserves on her back to milk from. She's that much bigger and so on. So what I'm saying, guys, is puberty is not the same as sexual maturity. A woman, a girl, can get pregnant at 10. Why aren't we getting girls at 10 years old pregnant? Because they're not sexually mature, and so on. So there's a difference between sexual maturity and puberty. So mate them when they're sexually mature. Now, for sexual maturity, there's 4 things that you need to have. All of them, not some of them. The first thing is at least 120. The second one is have at least 16 millimeters of back fat. Now, a lot of guys, especially from the breeding companies, well, the breeding companies, when they sell you boars, they have sire lines, which is selected on fast growth, lean growth, big muscling and so on. When they breed gilts for sale, they have totally different selection criteria. I sold gilts to a lady in Lobatse and so on, and another pig farmer went there and he said, no, those gilts are fat. I said to her, do you want a gilt that looks like a bodybuilder with that much back fat going into lactation, or do you want somebody with a bit of back fat reserves to go into lactation? I said, okay, that makes sense. Minimum 16 millimeters. Now, you do get things to measure that and so on. You won't have them, they cost a bit of money. Right age, it's sort of 7.5 months, between 6 and 7.5. Right weight, enough back fat, and having 3 cycles already. Now, the other thing is that often with the first cycle, what happens is, because everything isn't working, it's not going and so on, is that she comes on heat once, you mate her, tomorrow she's off. So by the third one, she'll stay on heat for 24 hours and so on. Everything is working properly. So you need all those things in place before you mate her. Now, why 120, guys? Now, 120, most guys say, oh, gee, we never even get them to 120. Why must I wait for 120? The thing is, after you've mated her, you cannot now put on weight. People think, I mated her at 70 kilos, I'll put that extra weight on in the next 115 days before she farrows. Guys, there is a negative correlation between feeding after mating in the early pregnancy and appetite during lactation. That's a proven negative correlation. What does that mean? I mean, if you feed it too much in early lactation, first trimester, ladies, you know what I'm talking about, then they will eat less during lactation when they need that amount of food and so on. So if you overfeed them now, if you're trying to gain weight and feeding them more, she's going to eat less in lactation, she's going to drop weight like a rock. You won't get her pregnant for 2 or 3 cycles afterwards. You're losing money all the way to the back and so on. That is why you've got to wait for that sexual maturity before you mate her.
Well, what's the number of days roughly goes between each cycles?
90% of my sows, if I wean them on a Thursday morning, Monday morning they're on.
And what if you miss
Now-
that window?
So is that what you're asking, Ian? Sorry, Brian.
And if you can keep them for the third
Yeah.
heat, what's the time period between each?
21 days.
21.
Yeah.
You need to record it as well.
Yeah. So the 21-day heat period and so on the pigs.
How often do they go on the cycle?
Oh,
Yeah. So after the first puberty, every 21 days they'll come on. Guys, pigs does not come on heat while they're lactating. Cows do. That you've got a cow who's calf at foot and drinking milk, and 2.5 months later, if you want to calf the same time every year, 2.5 months later, she's still giving milk to the calf, but she's getting pregnant. Doesn't work like that in pigs. They cannot come on heat while they're lactating. So the day that when you wean her, that sets off the next cycle. Everything starts revving up, and we'll talk about feeding levels during that whole cycle a bit further on as well. But guys, if you are doing 6-week weaning and because they're now so thin, they skip 1 heat and so on, and you're averaging 8 piglets, you're making 276,000 instead of 525, which if you just spend that extra time and effort in improving your efficiencies rather than searching for cheap food and so on. If you take that amount of money, that's like 200 bags of food that you're getting for free and so on. That is the way to go.
I think we fell into a trap of not knowing what is the adequate weaning weight of the piglets. We are weaning right now at 5 weeks because we feel at 4 weeks they're just not enough. You mentioned it's 7 kilos. out on Facebook, people are bragging like my piglets are 18 kgs at weaning. Like
Yeah, but they're winning at 7, 8 weeks.
yeah, like.
And then you look at the sow, and she's a bag of bones with skin
What
on.
should we expect at 4 weeks weaning? What should be the weight of our piglet?
Yeah. Now guys, so firstly you've got to feed that sow ad lib as much as you can eat. Now, if you haven't got a sow feeder and so on, what you do is, and because she doesn't eat 7 kilos the day after birth. Ladies, day after you gave birth, did you feel like eating a lot? Hell no. And so on. So it builds up over the first week, her appetite goes up and so on to that 7 kilos. So in the first week it's sort of up like that. But the rest of the lactation, she will eat 7 kilos. A sow, a fully grown sow can eat 7 kilos. When she's dry, you're feeding her 2.5 and so on. So she's always peckish, but she can eat 7 kilos. So you've got to feed her at maximum rate to get maximum milk production. That's no rocket science there. But at the same time, you also got to feed the babies extra. Creep feed, yes, it's bloody expensive, guys, but they eat very little of it. I start feeding, well, depending on the litter size. If it's a big litter, day 7, they said, yeah, we can eat some extra. That's how mum isn't giving us enough. They'll start. But the first, day 7, for the whole litter, the amount of food that I can take close to my hand like that, the whole litter, that's what they'll eat for the day. Second day, it will be 2 hands full, and by the end of the week 4 and so on, they were eating about 1 kilo of creep food. But for the litter, if you do work it out per pig, it's bugger all. It's 5 pulo worth of creep food per piglet and so on. But it makes a hell of it. Guys, spend your money on starting them well. Once they are stunted, they never recover from it. They never become a fully... That gilt, if you mate her too early and so on, she'll stay this size, pot-bellied and so on. You go and look at my sows now. Actually, the guys are complaining they're not fitting into the farrow crate. They're this size and they're that long. We sent 2 sows away. One was thinned after weaning. She had small litters, so she had to go. The other one wouldn't get on heat. Of course, she was huge. 9,100 for the 2. So that the one would have been worth 4,000. The other one 5,000. Now at 22 pula a kilo, you can work out how much she weighed, carcass weight at that size. But that's full-grown size. But you ask most people on the street, how big is a pig? They say it's something this big. That's sort of what they see a pig. But if you tell them they're this size and that long, they say, no man, that's a bloody cow. That's not a pig, and so on. But
so, given the ideal conditions, in those 28 days, you introduce creep from the 7th day. What are you getting? What are the weights that you are getting?
7 to 8. 7 to 8. And even. But you know how you get these little ones and the bigger ones because they're dominant and so on.
So average 7 to 8.
So of course you've got to put it where the sow can't get it. And so you've got to have a creep area where, and so on. In the beginning we just had a burglar bar frame, put it in the corner where the mum can't get it and put the feed behind there. Later on we built hard boxes and so on. But it's just somewhere where the sow can't get it. I take a 20-litre water container, one of the square ones, cut it in half, throw about that much concrete in it just to make it a bit heavier, and put the feed in there for the piglets. Now tomorrow morning, if there's a little bit left, take it out, feed it to the sow, put some new stuff, keep it fresh. It's highly palatable, it's bloody expensive, it tastes very nice. Pigs, guys, pigs' smell of sense is 2,000 times better than yours. 2,000 times better. Now your smell and your taste is related. If you smell better, you taste better. So yes, they've got taste buds, they like sweets. And we put in molasses in the creep feed, not too much because it can also, at a certain level, it will cause scouring and so on, but just enough to make it taste nice. They love it, they go for it, and so on. So feed the babies well. And now the other thing is, guys, at weaning, that's a second time when people get trouble and so on. We all know we've got to keep baby piggies warm. Ideal temperature is body temperature 37, 38 degrees Celsius for newly born piglets and so on. We all know that, and we do the best we can. We use hot boxes. You might have electricity at your piggery and have lamps or whatever. Some people have a thing with fire, with coals in and so on. Whatever you do, you try and do your best and keep them warm. But once at weaning, you throw them there into a grower pen and so on and say, yep, you are now on your way. Guys, the minute you wean them, it's hugely stressful for them. And when they're under stress, their temperature requirement goes right up to 38 degrees Celsius again. So what we do is we've put into a piece of wood, we put a sheet of ply over it with a lip in front, and in the mornings in the winter, everyone in the morning when you get there is underneath there. Why are they there? Because it's warmer than here. What heated it up? Their own body temperature, their own body heat heats it. They trap that hot air, and the same thing we do with the hot boxes. They heat their own hot box up. You give them a small contained area with the roof on, keep the body heat trapped, and they heat themselves up. New Zealand, where I come from, it's bloody cold and so on, so piggeries is trying to heat them up rather than cooling them down like here. But you have a grower shed with 400 pigs in and it's closed. In the morning you get there and it's like a sauna in there, just from their own body heat that they produce and so on. So guys, you'll have these figures and so on, but what I'm showing you is that there's huge gains to be had by improving your efficiency, and you can't improve your efficiency if you don't have good food and so on. And that 10 puller bag that you think you're saving, if you add your time and your petrol to go and fetch this stuff everywhere, you actually it's not cheap, and it doesn't make your pigs grow. The weaning is stressful. There's 3 stress factors. The first one is mum isn't there anymore. Okay, you can't do anything about that and so on, but don't take the mum away, change the food, change the pen all in one go, and you'll find that for a week or 10 days they stop growing. They actually lose weight before they catch on again and so on. Guys, stagger the stress factors. So how you do that? Take mum away, leave them in the farrowing crate where they're born. That's their whole world. They can't see out. They can see the roof and the 4 walls. This is their universe. Now you're putting them on a different planet. And, oh shit, it's stressful. New place. Second thing is, what people usually do, they had their 4 weeks of creep and it's expensive, so you put them onto weaner, which is a little bit cheaper and so on. And guys, doesn't matter if you put in 5% more bran or 5% less bran, if you change the food, there you can see it in their growth rates. Immediate effect, and so on. So leave them in the farrowing crate, take the mum away. Week later, now they forgot about mum, okay? Now you move them to the new pen, same food still. So you're actually feeding creep for 5 weeks. If you're weaning it 4 weeks, that last week you sort of go 50-50, 75-25, and you're changing over to wean in the 5th, by the end of the 5th week and so on. But at weaning, keep the food the same, keep the pen the same. Week later, change the pen. Sort of a week later, change the food. And then it's smooth and they keep on growing and they're going there. And then you'll get the maximum out of your weaning weight and so on. So, and guys, they reckon for every kilo you can put onto a 4-week-old weaner will save you 3 weeks on the other end. Other end, they're eating 3 kilos a day for 3 weeks, and so on. You can spend that extra bit on good quality creep food and so on to get that extra kilo of food onto your weaner and so on. You work that cost out, rather than paying it there, pay it here, and you'll get the gain. And if they get a good start, they cruise through to get 120 kilos at 6 months, 135 at 6 months. So guys, this spreadsheet that I've done, this is industry standards. So, sorry, it's a bit blurry. 9 to 10 weeks, they should be eating 1.18 kilos per day, and they should be weighing 28.7 kilos.
So, you keep on saying kilograms. So there's a lot of weighing that happens. Because as a starter, I mean, I use my eyes.
Good question. I'm very glad you asked that.
Small bucket. So you're saying I should get a scale?
Okay, that's one way. Okay, let me answer you. A weaner, creep weaner grower should be fed ad lib. What does that mean? As much as they can eat. Big piggeries put on lights in their grower shed. At 12 o'clock at night, they switch the lights on. Why? To wake the pigs up. Why? So they can eat. Get up. Oh, it's breakfast. And then the light goes off, so an hour later, go back to sleep so they don't burn the energy off. 5 o'clock, the sun comes up, breakfast again. Just to get more food into them. Why? So they grow better. The more food, the more growth. We will talk about that a lot more in the thing and so on. So your growing herd, ad lib, And I'll show you a self feeder that I make for out of one sheet of ply. It works like an absolute bomb, and so on, just now as well. So your growing herd is ad lib. Your sows, on the other hand, you want to, if they are come out of lactation, if you wean them and they're in a good condition, you feed them a certain level. If you're feeding them, if they're thin as a bone, then of course you feed them more. But now on one of our WhatsApp groups, somebody said, "What scoop do you use?" I used to use from Cephalana. I used to get a big tin mug, that size, actually that size, and so on, with just a normal tin mug, but giant size like this. And I used to use that. So you weigh that, and then you tell your guys with your sows, you give them 2 scoops or 2.5 scoops, and then you know exactly. But I'm starting to make these things for that exact reason. So what you do is you take one of these, and if you want to feed, if you want to know 2 kilos, then you put 2 kilos of food here, sort of level to, you scoop it in, keep it sort of bang so it's lying flat, and you know if it's full to there, every time you've got 2 kilos. So you sort of cut this off you put the food in, get the level, and then you cut it off from there on and so on. Then you know your guys, because your guys, you can say so many kilos, they're just going to put in what they want to, and you're oblivious of what's happening. But here, you've got a set amount of food going into, so your sow food needs to be weighed off. But rather than weighing the food, get a container that takes a certain amount, and you say 1 scoop, 2 scoops, 1.5 scoop, and you know that they're getting the right amount. Okay, so I'm going to make these commercially. If you want one, put your name on the list and I'll make it for you. How much you're feeding, also, and also, so you've got the quality of food, the quantity of food, and then how you're feeding it. Don't put it all in one spot, because especially if you've got a narrow, put it here and there's 4 sows that fit in here, and they all stand next to each other, but there's 6 pigs in the pen, and so on. So put it so that everyone, so put this 4 here, get the dominant 4 there, if there's 2 more pigs, throw off a scoop there and a scoop there, so that all of them can eat at the same time. It's important that you feed so that they all can eat at the same time. With the self feeder, okay, it's got 5 compartments, and there might be 20 weaners in that pen, but food is 24/7. That dominant can't stand in front of the food. He's got to go and drink water. When he goes there, the submissive ones go and eat. So there's food, and they also don't scream when you get there in the morning, "Ah, I'm hungry," and so on. That's always a bad sign. The ones who should be screaming is your sows, your dry sows, because they eat 2.5 kilos. They can eat 7. So yes, they're always peckish and so on. If you've got leaves and you've got grass and lucerne and all this other shit that people ask, can you feed your pigs? Yes, feed it as a snack. Make their stomachs full. They feel content. They have 2.5 kilos of food and 5 kilos of grass. Go and sleep nicely and so on. But don't feed it as a feed source. Feed it as a snack and so on. But guys, we are getting at 26 weeks. We're getting them to 135, killing out up to 110 kilos carcass weight. This is achievable. This can be done with the right food, with the right genetics, with the right health, and the right management. This is achievable. People say, no, it can be done. It's being done right here. And that will make you money, good money. If it takes you, guys, if you're selling a bacon at 8 months, I guarantee you're not making a cent. And a lot of guys produce pigs, they get him up to weight, they send him to abattoir, end of the month, end of the year, they send it to the auditor, and he comes back and says, made no profit. How can I not make any profit? I've sent tons of food to the abattoir. The pigs ate up your profit. That's how easy it is to lose money if you're not measuring, if you're not doing what you should be doing. Okay.
Just maybe to comment on the genetics. When we started our piggery, Tata is one of the people that we visited. She had nice pigs, but they were expensive. The price she gave us was, we just said, this woman is crazy. So we went around and bought much cheap stuff. 3 months later, this guy comes to our piggery. And he, okay, it was good he came, but when he left, we were sad. Because he just condemned all the pigs we had in the piggery. He said, you guys are holding on to, I don't know what to call it.
I call
But
them
yeah.
razorbacks, you know, the ones with backbone sticking out like that. Actually, Richard coined a good phrase. He said, you know you've got good genetics if you can roll a soccer ball down the length of the back without it falling off sideways. What does that mean? It's got muscling, and the backbone is there, and the muscles are standing here. You can roll a soccer ball down. If the backbone is the highest point on your pig's back, then you know you've got rubbish.
We made the same mistake. We had close to 30 or so nice in our definition at the time, gills and all that, but it was all rubbish because we were running away from people like Tato who were expensive at the time. And she knew what she was talking about. She knew her stuff, but we said, we went to a piggery once and then we never came back. But now, I think now she's now one of our admirers because, yeah, what we learned from her, we are now doing it. But yeah, we didn't buy from her because we thought she was expensive. Today we experience the same thing. People come to our piggery, they see our pigs, they say, but you guys are expensive. 8 months later, you see the same person sending a message to say, you know what, I bought these pigs here, they're not growing. I said, yeah, but we spoke 8 months ago. I said, no, I bought somewhere. Now I need to improve because I'm stuck with shit stuff here. I need to improve it. So we learn through that. I think running away from spending is expensive. We've gone through it. We know how it's like, and a lot of us here are going to go through it. So try and get your genetics right the first time.
Those mistakes cost you 20 times more than paying to avoid them beforehand, guys. It's a no-brainer. Okay, so I said to you that 4-week weaning weight is every kilo you can put on at 4 weeks saves you 3 weeks on the other end, and so on. Get them, spend your money on getting them a good start. Anything that goes wrong in the first 4 weeks, by the time you slaughter them, they pork weight where their pen mates are bacon weight. That's the other thing we do wrong. We want all of them to go at bacon weight. So we send the big ones and we keep the smaller ones and feed them for another 3, 4, 5 weeks till they're that weight. Guys, send the whole pen. Send those shitty ones as pork weight. Get rid of them. They're going to eat up your money. Send them as porkers when you're sending the big ones as baconers. Don't try and feed those up to bacon weight. They're going to eat up all your profit. Not worth doing. All in, all out. And so on. Okay. Good start. First thing. Now the second thing, guys, what is the most important piece of information you need to gather on a piggery to make a profit? But you're keeping records, you're recording different things. What is the most important piece of information you need on your piggery? How old they are. Now, I guarantee you if I go to any one of your piggeries and I ask you how old is that pig, what you'll say, 10 weeks. Truth is, you haven't got an idea how old he is. Because especially when you got more than 1 or 2 sows, but if you had one, okay, if it was born on Christmas Day and you can work out the age. So when you got 2, you cross foster and you separate the males from the females, 3 weeks down track, and oh shit, I can't remember when they were born, was it last week or and so on. So the age, now 16 weeks, or well, 6 months later, I ask you how old is that pig? Haven't got a clue. How can you benchmark? How can you say, where are they here, what weight should they be, and so on? Very easy. I'll tell you how now, just now. But what you need to know is industry standard, at 17 weeks they need to weigh 70 kilos. You need to know that. At 20 weeks they need to weigh 100 kilos. You need to know that. So now you need to know how old is that pig first. How do you do that? Guys, at teeth and tailing, you're busy handling them. You can ask the guys who've been with me on a practical course. It takes me 45 seconds to do iron injection, teeth, cutting all their teeth, the tail off, and to give them an ear notch. And the ear notch is for the week of the year that they were born in. So they're born between the 1st and the 7th of January, they get a number 1 on the ear. Between the 7th and 14th, number 2, and I'll show you the notching system now. So you can go to my piggery now and say, how old is that pig? And I look at the ear and I can tell you within 3 or 4 days of that week, that's how old that pig is. So when I load them for the abattoir and so on, I look at the ears and say, okay, yep, there's 26 weeks, 24 weeks, 25 weeks, all in that range going to the abattoir. So you've got to know how old they are. Very easy. How do I do that? Okay, very easy, man. You can't get any. Now, when you read a number, when you put your head over the wall, they're looking at you. It's very difficult to see their back end sometimes, especially when you heat spotting. You've got to put foot here and go and look at that side to see the fannies and so on, to see whether they're on heat. But when you put your head over the wall, they're looking at you. So that we're looking at the pig doing that, and when you're teeth and tailing, you do the teeth and tailing at him looking at you, like that. Now, when you read a number, you read 52, you don't read 250. So the 10s are on this side, and the 1s are on that side, okay? Number 1, at the top of, now here is that thick bit of the ear here. You don't want to cut that because it bleeds like a pig. So just off that thick bit, number 1 notch. And the notch that we use, Tolo has got them stocked. Mine had to import from South Africa and so on. Tolo's got that. They've got iron, they've got Ivermec. They don't do vaccines because they need a vet, and we'll talk about Mbatsi does stock vaccines and so on. But so number 1 is 1 notch at the top of the ear on the left hand, on your left hand side, the pig's right hand side. 1, 2, 3 is the tip. 5 is just under the tip, not too low, but just so you see it's not the tip. So there would be better. That's 5. So out of that you can make 9. Okay. On this side, exactly the same with the 0. So now that's, instead of 1, it's a 10 and a 10, a 30 and a 50. Now out of that you can do 99, but you only need 52. So you do that till the end of the year. New year you start at 1. So at the moment we've got pigs that was it's sort of 20 weeks in last year and 6 weeks this year. So you still can work out it's 26 weeks old, and so on. So and it's ching ching ching. It takes, I can do ear notching, iron injection, teeth and tailing in under 45 seconds. So like that, and you've got that information all the way through. If you are on this between the 1st and the 7th of January, you would have marked him with week 1. Okay. Now at the moment where we are now, we are sort of middle of or 3rd week of February. So 4 weeks in January, 3 weeks. So this is week 7. So if the piglets were born today, I would mark them with 7. 7 would be a 1, a 1, and a 5.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't do all of them, you just do the ones that you need. So a 1 and a 1 and a 5. Next week, 8. So 8 would be a 5 and a 3.
Okay.
9, a 5, a 3, and a 1.
Also, why you not represent the number?
Exactly. So these are the 1s, and these are the 10s.
Okay.
Exactly the same place, just with a 0 behind it. Now, at the moment, guys, the thing is, if you're selling breeding stock, like we do, I want to not just sell you a boar, I want to sell you gilts and a boar without giving you related animals. We've got 3 different boars and so on. So what we're doing at the moment is our number 1 boar, we put a notch on his left ear. Our number 2 boar, notch on the right ear. Number 3 boar, and 1 with both or nothing. So we could actually do 4 different boars. So these tell us who the father is, those tell us how old the pig is. Now I can sell you 1 boar that's unrelated to these gilts from the same piggery. Obviously if they're the same age, they can't have the same mum within 6 months anyway. So that you know they are totally unrelated to each other.
So you say 1 boar is numbered 100.
Yeah.
And the other boar is 200.
Exactly.
And the other one is 300.
Yeah, 300 or no marks, so which you get 0, 0. So you could do 4, you could do no marks, 1 mark, 2 marks, 3 marks. Yes, both. So you could actually do 4 balls if you're doing it that way. Now, guys,
And when you do the injections and everything,
good question. Guys, if you go in the handbook, they'll say on day 3. But guys, the guys who were with us or the guys who've done this before, those needle teeth are razor sharp. They are hypodermically needle sharp. And there's 2 big ones here and 2 big ones there and 2 big ones there and 2 big ones there. Now, ladies, you're more informed on this. Guys, think of other body parts that is equally sensitive. Imagine that teeth sucking from there. And man, as soon as the second one, okay, guys, you know, there's the saying, sucking the hind tit. You know that saying? It means you've been done short by. That comes from a pig because the top teats have more milk than the bottom teats. So when they come out, the first baby goes for these 2 teats. The second one says, no, I want that one too. Either they bite and those needle puncture the teeth and then mastitis, and then the mom says, bugger you, I'm sore, I'm not feeding any of you, and they all die, and so on. Or he tries to rip them off and then rips it and so on. Either way, it hurts like hell and it damages the cell. That can happen 5 minutes after birth. If you wait till day 3, the damage is done, guys. I don't want to do them when they're still wet and navel string wet. I do it the day after birth. And I'm not going to do the teeth and then 2 days later do the rest. When I do in one thing, I do them all the day after birth. For me, it works. You can go to wait for day 3, but it's 45 seconds per piglet.
Is that the same time that you do the notching?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you castrate at all?
Guys, in 34 years of pig farming, I've not castrated one pig. Why? The reason for castration is firstly so that the sisters and brothers don't mate each other, and so on. The second one is that boar taint. Now, not all pigs get boar taint, but if you sell a pig to somebody and they get boar taint, they'll never buy pork off you again, and so on. So yes, you can castrate. There's an injection that you can give them called Improvac. You give it 4 weeks before you want to send them to the abattoir, and that takes away any boar taint that there might be. But guys, boar taint starts at puberty. I said puberty is sort of 6 weeks, 6, 7, 8 months old is where puberty starts, especially for your boars is a little bit later than your gilts, and so on. They are in the fridge already by then. I've never sold a pig older than 6 months and so on. Then otherwise they go over that 135 kilos, and then if your pig slaughters out 110 kilos, you're getting 35 pula a kilo. It goes at 111, 22 pula a kilo. That's like 1,500 pula overnight that you're losing. That hurts. That hurts. It hurts your heart and your brain as well. So guys, grow them fast. Then you don't need to castrate. Look, what does the bulls do? Apart from mating and so on, they also produce growth hormone testosterone. At the Olympics, these Eastern European women who won with weightlifting and the shot put and so on, because they've got muscles like that and a beard like a man, they inject them with testosterone. That's why, guys, boars are your fastest growers, they are your leanest growers, they are your best feed converters. Because if you castrate them, they go fat. Now guys, to put on 1 kilogram of fat takes 2.25 times more food than growing meat. Think, how can that be? If you take if you take meat, how much water is in your body? 1 kilogram meat. About 75% of that is water. And that is solids. So water is water, but the solids, the growth comes from the dry matter that you're feeding them. Fat, same amount, also weighs 1 kilo. Actually, it's a bit more because it's lighter than water anyway. How much of that do you think is water? %. Is water. This one, 75% is water. That's why it takes you 2.25 times more food to put on a kilogram of fat. So if you're growing fatter boars, it costs you more in food. So it's a no-brainer, and so on. And so how do I deal with not castration? Firstly, I make sure that they grow fast and they go to an abattoir before they. The second thing is, guys, when you've got a pen and you've weaned a sow and now you've got 8, 9, 10 babies, did they sleep in a little corner like this, like 1 square meter in the pen? But if there's 10 square meters here, that's not an efficient use of space. I put 2 litters in. Now, if you've got 25 sows, which means you've got 1 sow a week farrowing, it's better to mate 2 sows every 2 weeks than mating 1 every week. Because if you've got 2 sows farrowing, one gives you 7 and the other one gives you 15, you cross foster and so on, and they both grow better and so on. So I put 2 litters in up to about week 10. So then they weigh about 20 kilos, 25 kilos. Then I split males, females, and so I've used that space more efficiently, and now they never meet each other, they're never in the same pen again, so there can't be any mating of sisters and things going on.
Sorry, at what age do you split the sexes?
About week 10, when I move them out of the weaner pens into the grower pens, basically, depending on your
Switching
system.
from weaner to grower, already you are splitting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So guys, now this per week and so on, we've got guys here that's got 6 sows, 12 sows, 25 sows. It's actually 21. If you're producing a 4-week weaning and 4 days between farrowing and so on, you actually need 21 sows to have 1 sow farrowing every week of the year. I say 25. Why? Because during the hot months, especially January, February, and so on, sows get mated. They come on heat, they get mated, but they return to service, and especially your gilts and so on. So just 1 or 2 extra just to fill that gap, so you've got income every week and so on. But guys, just last week on Facebook, somebody had 5 sows, 1 boar, all coming on heat at the same time. Said, oh yeah. She asked it, is that all right? One boar can mate 21 sows, but that's 1 a week. That's not 5 in 1 week, and so on. If you do, his battery goes flat, and he loses interest and so on, and so on. So, guys, it's important to stagger your farrowings. Now with gilts it's difficult because they are in control of when they're coming on heat. Sows, you are in control. You say, I'm taking the babies away, you know, 4 days later she comes on heat. So but if you got them spread, so your farrowings with your gilts, firstly buy them at different ages. Don't buy 10 gilts at the same age because they're all going to come on heat. Transport there brings them on. Next to a ball of a sudden brings them on, and they all come at the same time. Now we need more balls. Buy them at different ages so they come on in at different times and so on. But so when you stagger them, you have 1 litter that's 1 week old, 1 that's 4 weeks old, 1 that's 8 weeks old, 1 that's, and so on. So those are starting to pay for those. If you have 5 litters all coming at the same time, you've got 50 babies. That's a lot of money in food. So you've got to stagger them and so on. And so think of 21 to 25 sows gives you 1 sow a week farrowing. Of course, if you halve it, then it's 1 every 2 weeks. So that's sort of 12 sows. If you're looking at 6 sows, then you're doing 1 a month. So make sure that you space them out. And if they're not perfectly spaced, every time you wean them, you move them on a week, or you bring them so if they want to bring them earlier, make this one a bit later and that one a bit further and so on. It vary between 4 and 5 weeks just to start spacing them out evenly. And then you're also using your building more efficiently. This thing costs a shitload of money, and the amount of pigs that you put through it a year pays or doesn't pay for that pen of yours. Okay. So I'll share that with you. Actually, we're coming back to this cheap food thing. Now I want you to close your eyes. Visualize the plate of food that was in front of you last night. Now your wife knows how much food you need. Every night she dishes that amount of food. Now if you haven't gained weight in the last year, that food is maintenance food. What is maintenance food? It's the food that you need to move around, to catch food, to go and fetch food, to live, to heart pump, to produce body heat. But there's nothing sellable from it, except for burps and farts and body heat and some manure if you're selling pig manure and so on. But there's nothing sellable from maintenance food. So now your wife's saying, I like a bit more suspension in my husband and so on. I'm going to give him another scoop of the millipap every night. Now you're growing. That is used for growth. Guys, when you're feeding at low levels, if this is maintenance and you're feeding that much of food, you might get a certain amount of growth. But if you fed that much more, you've doubled your growth. Not that much more, that much more, and you've doubled your growth. You see where I'm going with this? So just that much more doubles your growth. Not that much more, just that much more doubles your growth. Okay, just next one. Okay, so now if you take the first one again, where there was one block here for all of these columns, but now you're taking this and you're feeding it here. So now they're growing twice as fast and reach the same weight so many days earlier. What you have saved, you haven't saved those, but you saved all of that maintenance food. So every day that your pig gets older, the first food that he uses is for maintenance. And that is how you save money. Guy on Facebook about a year ago asked on Facebook, how can I save money on food? My answer was, feed them more. And the guy said, no, you didn't understand the question and so on. So now I understood it perfectly and I laid it out for you. Oh shit, that does make sense, doesn't it? And so on. Just the next one there. Okay, now you're going to ask me, how do I know this is 30%? I'll show you in the next slide. But, so they did a huge trial. I mean, talking about 10,000 pigs and so on, and they fed them ad lib, which means as much as they can eat. Okay? And one group of pigs, the next group they fed at 90% of ad lib, 80, 70, 60 and so on, and they went to here. And I've taken the growth rate and so on, and extrapolated that, and in another 2 weeks they would have been at 0 growth and so on. So this 30% is 30% of ad lib, but when you're feeding at 60%, it is half of the food that you eat, that you're giving them, goes into maintenance, not a third. Half is now going into maintenance. You're feeding here, that a quarter of it is going into growth and others into maintenance. So you can see this maintenance thing, you've got to put as much food into them as early as possible. Also remember, a piggy that's a young pig, a small pig, the growth rate or the feed conversion rate of a young pig is the same as a chicken, which is the gold standard in animal growth and so on. 2 kilos of food puts on 1 kilo of meat, live weight, sorry. When they are baconers, it takes 4 kilos, okay, that's including their mum and dad's food, 4 kilos to put on 1 kilo of food. So you can see the older they get, the worse their feed conversion gets, and so on. So get as much food into them early. Get them off to a good start. And those weaners, that's 20 kilos at weaning and so on, 10 kilos or 7, 8 kilos at weaning, they do not have a problem. They grow through, man, you can cut their legs off, they grow fine after that. But if you don't, they are buggered. They're already buggered. Get rid of them, buy other ones, and so on. Get them off to a good start. Okay, so yeah, very important is it's 30% when you're feeding them ad lib. But when you're feeding them at this rate, more of it is a percentage of maintenance which is wasted. Next one. Okay, so yeah, this is a trial. I've just converted these figures a bit. Those are the figures they got. So they fed the pigs. They were all the groups were sort of 26 kilos at the start of the trial. Okay, they fed them for 30 days, and these guys, they started there, they ended there. So they went from 26 to 50 kilos in 30 days. These guys went from 26 to 33 kilos in 30 days. Okay, the weight gained, these guys put on 7 kilos, those guys put on 23 kilos. More importantly than that, now I've extrapolated this. Okay, I took it to not for 30 days. I took it from 26 to 50 kilogram weight gain. It would have taken these guys 100 days to go from there to to 50 kilos. 100 days, because they're growing that much per day. And so on. If you divide that into that, you'll get to 100 days. Okay, these guys doing the same weight range would have taken 31 days. So feeding them there or here You've saved how many days? 70 days, 69 days, which means that you could just about put another lot through your piggery and so on. So you've lost days. Also, now the food used from 26 to 50 kilos, these guys would have used 76 kilos of food. These guys would have used 48 kilos of food. Now this is just from 26 to 50. Now take it from 10 or from 8 to 130. How much food do you think you can save? Shitloads. Lots. Guys, grow them faster. Feed them as much as they can eat when they can eat it. And so on. That is the only way to make money. Okay, next one, Rich. Okay, now guys, I don't work for Tolo. I'm a pig farmer. We had a feeding company. People think feeding companies make huge profit margins. They don't. They make about 14%. Feed companies are trucking companies. They bring huge amounts of food in. They make a small margin, but they do it 3, 4, 5 times a year. So if you're making 10% profit margin, but you're making it 4 or 5 times a year, you've got 40, there's not many banks that pay 40% interest on your money and so on. But it's massive capital expenses and so on. Tolo can store 900 tons at any one time on site and so on. They've got 9 trucks. They've now got one of those silos that can put it into your silo as well. But that trucks go South Africa and back every day and so on. They buy maize when it comes off the paddock from the farmer in South Africa at the lowest possible price because they're buying hundreds of tons and so on. The cheapest price, if you go out now to anybody you know, the cheapest price you're going to pay for a bag of 50 kilogram of maize and so on is about 150 to 200 at the moment. Yeah, if you try and buy it, they're buying it off the paddock at 90 or 80 and so on. I cannot produce the food myself as what I'm buying it from Tolo. Now, guys, they are cheaper guys. This is Bob's standard, Botswana Bureau of Standards. This is the minimum specs that a feed company has to comply with. Guys, and when Dr. Mbatsi is here, I'll ask him about this again. Those things are archaic. They are way too low. Now the feed companies here, all of them, including Tolo before I got there, spec their food on the minimum standard because that's the cheapest to make. And guys, I can guarantee you they do not grow at those levels. And if they don't grow, doesn't matter how cheap it is, it's not making you money. And so on. So those are the Bob standards. There's not one food company who feeds their own food to their own pigs. When I started with Tolo, when we closed our feed mill down, this is about February, March last year. It's about a year from now.
Yeah, it's a year now.
Yeah. I went and bought their grower. I fed it to my pigs. They just ground to a halt. Shit, this is not working. So I took my formulation that I've been using for the last 2 years, and I've been mixing for 34 years for myself. I said, can you mix me this formulation? So they said, yep, okay. Then they say, oh, throw that one out, we'll just do yours. And then I gave them all the other feeds formulations, and they're mixing those. So those are tried and tested, and they're getting the industry standard growth rates. I can guarantee you that. If you've got their genetics, and you're using that food in the right amounts, you will get the same growth rates out of it, and so on. But
Thomas, are you are you going to get to a point where you show us the calculation of food per, because I buy 50 kilogram, and I didn't have this thing. Like I said, I use a bucket and just gut feel they look hungry. But are you going to get to a point where you can show us this is how much you're buying for so many? Or
yeah. So that previous one with the reds and so on, you can work out. Okay, they're going to eat this for 7 days. It should cost you that much, and 7 days that's how many kilos. So you can work out to go from 28 kilos to 120 kilos. You can work out those times 7, and it will give you the total feed.
If I know the ration that each pig should take at a particular
Age, that's it. For that week, and you multiply it by 7, you add it all up, and then you got that, and so on. So guys, obviously it's what do you call it, industry secret, not secrets, but it's industry sensitive. I'm not going to give you the formulation, but I have a training program that teaches you how to balance ration. Guys, it's not just throwing 2 or 3 things together. There's a lot more to balancing a ration than throwing mealies and soya together and so on. What about the calcium phosphate amounts, the ratios between it, the amino acids, all of those kind of things. So I've got a training course that teaches that. It's actually the feeding part of a bigger course, which is A to Z of pig farming and so on. It's all in those little, the contacts on those little things that you've got there. But guys, I can guarantee you the food that Tolo is producing will give you the growth rates if you've got good genetics, good health, and good management and so on.
You're talking about the BOP standards as stipulated there. I think we've seen that these standards, maybe they need to be revised. I can tell you.
Protein at 19 is too low. Grower at 15 is way too low, and so on. More importantly, these ones here, these are minute. Our weaner is 15. Our grower is 13.8 and so on. Now 13.8, 12.5 doesn't sound that much, but let me explain to you what a megajoule is. Megajoule is it is a million joules. What is a joule? We all know what a centimeter looks like and a mile looks like. And what does a joule look like? It's a measurement of energy. A joule is defined as if you take 1 kilogram, the energy used to take 1 kilogram lifted 1 meter in 1 second. That's a joule. So a megajoule is a million times the difference 2.5 or whatever. So it's a bit of extra energy doing that and so on. That's what's going into growth now instead of labor and so on. So these things and protein levels make a massive difference and so on.
And we've noticed with Tolo that creep is 20%. It's not 19%. So it's the influence from the industry. We told them 19% doesn't make those animals grow. Put more.
This one, definitely. We're not making a finisher at the moment. If you're going over 50 sows and so on, it might pay you to do a finisher as well. But on a smaller scale, going through with grower and so on is fine. That would save you a little bit. A weaner would cost you about the same as a dry sow in price and so on. But at smaller quantities, it doesn't warrant splitting another ration in there and so on. But so 19, 18, 15, 14, 12 and so on. This is the BOP standard. Just go to the next one.
Excuse me.
Let's okay.
Just a guidance. How long do you feed on a creep weaner?
Okay, so creep we feed from day 7 if it's a big litter, day 10 if it's a smaller litter, through till a week after weaning. Whether you're weaning at 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, I would feed it till the week after weaning, just to wean them with the same food and so on. Then a week after weaning, you would start them with weaner, and you would phase it in. You would change it overnight. You go 50-50, 75-25, and change it over to weaner. Then weaner, I would feed up to 10-12 weeks when you take them out of the weaner rooms into the grower shed and so on. 10 to 12 weeks, change them onto grower, and I would feed that through all the way to slaughter. My gilts and so on, I also feed through to slaughter, or to slaughter weight, which is 125, 130 anyway, so that they're also at mateable size. They come on heat, especially if you take them, pick them, if you move pigs, if you stress them in any way. So picking them up here and taking them to your pigs is stress. You put them there next to a boar and all of a sudden they pop like cherries and so on to come on heat and so on. Wait for the second one, wait for the third one, done.
So another question, when do you switch your gilts and your boars from grower to dry sow?
Okay, good question, Igor. Okay, so guys, remember I said to you, As soon as you've mated those gilts, wait till they're up to weight, because you can't put it on later because it's going to have effect in your lactation. As soon as you've mated them, step them down from ad lib to about 2 kilos. 2 kilos on a gilt, which is not full size yet, will still give her growth, but not fast growth, so it affects her appetite.
Still grow.
At weaning, you can step them down to a dry sow at 2 kilos.
So after the first farrowing, basically you can switch them to dry sow.
After first mating.
Weaning, rather, yeah.
No, if it's a gilt, after you've weaned her after the first lactation, after mating for the first time.
Right.
As soon as she's mated, step her down.
Okay.
Otherwise, with that early part of the pregnancy, if you overfeed her, then affects the lactation feed.
Yes. Okay, I see.
There's a different level. Which stage should be sustaining the ad-lib feeding and then switching down?
All your growers, your creep, your weaner, your grower is ad-lib. I'll show you a self feeder that we use and so on. Very easy to make just now. But just sort of memorize those and then look at the next slide. Now, this is NRC, the next one.
There was a hand that side.
Sorry.
Yeah, the dry females which are pregnant.
Yeah. Dry sows are pregnant sows. Mostly. Should be.
The feeding, regardless of the age of the gestation, is just the same.
Okay, so feeding dry sows, guys, the rule of thumb is you want to keep them in a body condition of 3 out of 5. If you go on the internet, say sow body condition scoring, and it will show you pictures of a sow that's 1, which is emaciated with thin as bone, a bag of bones with skin on. 2, which is thin but with a little bit of meat. 3 is perfect condition for mating and keeping in that condition. 4 is getting fat. 5 is obese, and so on. Now, it doesn't pay you to go into 4 and 5. You say that you're losing money feeding them. You don't want to go below 3 because then they don't have the reserves to milk from. So once they mated, well, you want to try and keep them at 3 so that they are going to get pregnant with a good sized litter. And then during that 115 days, you just want to keep them at that body condition score. There's no money in overfeeding them and so on. So it's a cheap food, it's a constant feeding rate. Now, if the sow has lost, especially thin after weaning, give her 2.5 kilos. If she's already in a 3 condition, give her 2 kilos during that time. Gilts, keep them on 2.5 again, and so on, just so they still grow, but you don't want to feed them ad lib by a long shot and so on. And also because it's now dry sow, so there's lower spec, lower energy, lower protein, also cost you less and so on. That makes sense?
There's another hand behind David.
So I've seen some people going to supermarket and getting old vegetables and things like that. What's your take on that?
Okay, so that lettuce that you're buying or getting for free, that lettuce has got 90% water in, firstly. So you're only getting 10% dry matter. Water is water, but dry matter isn't dry matter. The second thing, actually, I am going to handle that a bit further on. Can we just park that one? It will fit in, and when I'll do, I'll say that I'm answering that question now. Okay, next one. Sorry. Now, guys, remember what we said, what bog standard is?
Okay,
so this is the creep.
Sorry, request. Somebody aggressively wants to ask.
When you give the pregnant sow, when can you start giving it lactating?
Okay. Guys, the biggest problem you have the week before farrowing and the week after farrowing. Who's had problems there with their sows? Stop eating. Why are they stopping eating? Because they get constipated. What does constipated mean? Blocked up, dry, and so on. Guys, you must teach your guys one thing. Before they start washing out, read the sign on the floor. In the farrowing unit, you want to look at the baby's poo. Which ones is watery, which ones is nice and solid, what color are they, and so on. Because that will tell you if you've got sick babies and so on. Your baby's poo should be no looser than toothpaste. If it's looser than that, they are getting sick and they die from dehydration. They don't die from E. coli or salmonella, they die from dehydration. Because they're this size, they're losing more water out the back end than what's going in the front, and they die from dehydration and so on. That's more Dr. Mbatsi's department and so on.
Isn't the answer a week before she goes?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you start the week before your lactation diet, it's got a bit more fiber in, and so on. So if you sort of, when you put her in the farrowing pen, which is usually sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 days before she farrows, so she can get used to the farrowing pen, whether you're having a pen or a farrowing crate, or just a certain pen that you put her in. It's again, you moved her from where she was to a new place. It's all stressful for her. So you want her to settle in, yeah, okay, this is now my new home, and so on, a few days before farrowing. And when you put them in there, start giving them lactation. So it's not, again, a change in that time when she's a shitload of things going on around her.
So before then, they're just on dry soap.
Yeah, so that's it. I'll do you a sort of a graph when up and down just now and so on.
Yeah, I think the assumption here is that you are keeping records. If you don't know when your pig is going to give birth, then you are lost. You don't know when to start converting into lactation. So you must keep records, know when he's going to give birth, and then work backwards to say maybe a few days before she gives birth, I switch her to lactation. Otherwise,
the other thing the guys have problems with is myself pregnant. They put a picture up, and sometimes from the top or from a different angle, you can't even. But I challenge anybody. I've got 34 years of experience. Within a month of farrowing, you cannot see anything changed on her. If somebody says that's how I was pregnant and is lying, he cannot tell you that. How do I know that my sows are pregnant? Firstly, I make them. On a certain day, I'm there, I'm writing the date down, and so on. 21 days later, I check her. No, not on heat. 42 days later, I check again. No, not on heat. Now I presume her pregnant, and so on. Guys, the best way to heat spot is when you're feeding. So they're all busy, the head's that way, the arses is this way, you can see the fannies, and so on. You see, man, especially gilts, man, it's a cherry like that, you can't mistake it. If it looks like red and you can't see, so when you see swelling, climb in the pen and sit on her back. If she goes boom like a rocket from under you, then she's not on heat. A sow or gilt that's on heat, if you try and chase her down the passage and you touch her back, then she stands. No, come on. I can't touch her, but try and get her there, but if you touch her, she stands. There's no science in this. If she stands when you climb on her back. Richard posted a photo of him sitting on a sow, and everyone said, she's on heat. Our sows are just that time. They come and ask for the ear scratch and so on. She was just being loving and so on. She wasn't on heat, but if you touch a sow and she stands, so that's your second check. You just look for swelling. Then you sit on her and she stands, then you put her to the ball. Never leave the ball with the sow. Firstly, you don't know when it's mated or whether it's mated at all. Remember, guys, absence make the heart grow fonder. What does that mean? If you haven't had it for a while, when you get together, you make sure you get some. If you can have it all day long, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. You guys are good at procrastination and so on. That's when they can't have it, when you put them together, yep, things happen. But then you're there, you see it happening, you write the date down, you know when the 21, 42 day, the expected farrowing date is. You can do your vaccinations, you can do your treatments pre-farrowing and so on. One of my most hated questions on Facebook is, can I vaccinate or can I inject a pregnant sow? And 9 out of 10 people will say, no, abortions. Bullshit. Guys, you have to do your vaccinations. So I'm talking about FarrowSure and LitterGuard, which Dr. Mbatsi will handle and so on. 2 weeks before farrowing and 6 weeks before farrowing. So 6 weeks before is the primary, and the 4 weeks later, at 2 weeks before farrowing, is your booster. Why are you doing it twice? Because the first one will give you a rise in immunity, but will be quite low and it will come down again. The booster will go much higher and it will come down much slower, gives you a much higher level of immunity and so on. So that's why you're doing it twice. And you're doing it while she's pregnant. Why are you giving the Farrowsure and even Litterguard, which is to stop scouring in babies? You're not injecting the babies. They've got no immunity when they're born. Where do they get their immunity from? Is passively from their mother through the colostrum. So you're giving her the disease in a weakened form that she builds up antibodies to give it to the babies when they've got no antibodies through the colostrum. So that's why you're injecting the cells to protect the babies. You're not injecting the babies with Litterguard.
So Kuwas, did you just say I should put in the straw with the bowl and wait to see it happen? So I just can't close it.
No. If you put it in there, you don't know whether it's happened or at all, or when it happened. So you don't know when she's going to farrow. You can't do your vaccinations because unless you just estimate.
You gotta see it happen.
Supervised.
It's supervised mating.
How many times does it? Sorry, it's a silly question.
Yeah, no. I know what you want to say.
Yeah.
3 times.
Oh.
I mate. So I win on Thursday. Monday morning I mate them. Monday afternoon, AM, PM that night I mate them again. Tuesday morning I mate them, 3rd time.
And you separate them after
Yeah.
the session.
Ping back, ping back 3 times. One cell. Now, guys, it's a fact that if you use more than one ball on the same cell in the same heat, it will increase your litter size. I manage the pig research unit at Massey University in New Zealand. And it's a small unit. It was a 66 sow unit, which means it's 3 sows a week farrowing. We were selling pigs to research, so we needed to know who their mother was, their father was, their birth weight, their weaning weight, everything. Then we had record systems coming up our ears because we sold that information to the researchers with lesson variables and so on. Anyway, we had 3 balls. We had a pure Duroc, a pure Landrace, and a pure large white, and so on. Now, 90% or 95% of the time, we kept with the same boar to the same sow because otherwise, if you've got 2 boars, then it's that they out and they can't use them in research. But every now and then, this boar gave her a shot in the morning, and this afternoon he didn't feel like it, so you use another boar. And we often get like in a litter 7 white babies and 4 brown babies from Duroc, obviously. And it does. It's a fact. It will increase your litter size. So if you're just commercial, if you've got extra boars, use a different boar the 2nd or 3rd time, depending on how many boars you've got and how many cells are due to come on heat and so on. But it does increase your litter size. But then it screws up your records and so on.
But now,
Yeah.
now if you use different boars, we were talking about
that screws up your record keeping system.
Oh.
Yeah, but then I can't tell you, this is non-related, so I can't sell you a boar and gilt. But I can sell it to you as a boar if you just want a boar, but I can't sell you gilts either at the same time. So yeah, that screws up your whole record keeping system and so on. But
there's a few more questions.
Okay. When did you say you vaccinate?
so vaccinations is a primary and a booster 6 weeks before farrowing and 2 weeks before farrowing. Now the other thing that you need to do at 2 weeks before farrowing is to do ivermectin. Ivermectin deworms internal parasites and external mange and lice and ticks. So that cleans it up outside and inside at the same time. Especially, deworming. The thing is, guys, if those babies are born, firstly they got no immune system. Okay. Now the mom infects them with worms. Now, guys, very few farmers know how pigs react to worms. People think that they're growing slower from worms because the worms eat some of their food. The amount of worms, the amount that they could eat is negligible. What happens is with worm infection, the pigs have an immune response to it. The same as if they were infected with a disease. And when your immune system goes into war mode, everything else stands still. Yet when America went into the First World War, they stopped making cars and they made jeeps, and they stopped making trucks and they made tanks. Yet every other industry came to a dead stop. Everything, all the resources went into the war effort. Same with your body. If you have an immune response, everything goes and fights the enemy, and so on. So growth and reproduction all goes out the window, and so on. So that's one immune response. Now, the other thing is, so that's a big benefit. If your babies aren't challenged, they've got no immune system, and they're not challenged by worms, they're not challenged by E. coli, because you have vaccinated the sow as well, and you deworm the sow. But a major thing, that most of your deaths in the first 24 hours is overlays by the sow. Every time that sow is on her feet, she is a death threat to the babies. So if she's itching, she's got scroptic mange, those little buggers, they are arachnids, they've got 8 legs, they dig a hole into the skin, they lay the eggs there and they itch like hell. So now the sow, she gets up and she scratches herself and so on. Every time, now she's up 5 times an hour instead of 1 every 2 hours. Every time she's on her feet, she's possibly squashing a baby and so on. So clean her off, and those mange can only live off the sow for 3 weeks. Is that right, Doc? 3 weeks, yeah.
3 to 4 weeks.
So if you vaccinated sort of those 2 weeks before and so on, and you putting her clean into a pen, she can't give the babies mange, she can't give them worms, and they can, man, some of these guys on Facebook, they deworm every month as a regular. And it's not just the sows, all these babies, you've got to catch and squeeze, and they'll have a stress and all that shit. If you start them off clean, and you put them in a pen, and they don't have contact to other, you keep them in that same group, and so on, they're not on soil, where are they going to get the worms from? That you might once in their 6 months lifetime maybe need to do a deworming again, but we don't. In 3 years, I think we've done 2 dewormings.
No, we don't do that often.
But the thing is, guys, when you do it, do every pig in your piggery. Otherwise, you do those and those aren't, and you're moving the pens, and then those get into that pen and they pick it off the wall and they're back into a problem. So clean the piggery off by doing every pig once, and then you squeeze. It's plain sailing all the way through. Okay.
There's a hand.
We'll do one more question.
Yeah, from the meeting, you put the salt to the bowl, it stays on top of it for that 5-7 minutes. Always never sure whether immediately gets off is done, I should remove them, or I should give them some water, even just still in the morning, maybe to go on top of it.
Okay, it's always good to do it in the cooler times of the day, so earlier in the morning and later in the afternoon and so on. Look, the process is, they get together, there's a bit of foreplay. There's a bit of pushing around, smelling, scent, the boar chomps like that and the foam comes out of his mouth. That's where the pheromones live. The pheromones is a gas form of hormones. So that stimulates the sow and himself and other boars that's nearby and so on. So that's one thing. Then he nudges her in the side, and she pisses a little bit often, and in that piss is her hormones, and he puts his nose in there, and oh yeah, nice, yes, it smells right, and so on. There's a bit of foreplay going on, and then it's get on and so on. And guys, very importantly with the young boar, especially, make the first time pleasurable, that he looks forward to it. If you put him into the older sows, he beats the shit out of him and says, oh, no, shit, this stuff is not nice. So this is work. It's not pleasure anymore. And so on. So make it pleasurable that he looks forward, and you've got same with gilts. Don't get them bashed up by a ball and so on first time. Make sure they're on heat. Look, drag pressure test. They're begging. They must be begging when you put them in there. And the ball is mature, not a big ball, but a ball that knows his stuff, that he knows which end to jump on and how to do the job and so on. The other thing is, guys, help the ball. I would say pigs would have been extinct if it wasn't for the hand of man, because they are terrible at finding the spot. It's over and under and left and right and everywhere but the right, up the arse and everywhere else except the right spot and so on. So now don't grab the thing and put it in there, because as soon as you grab it, he pulls back and so on. But firstly, guys, wear a glove, because otherwise your wife won't let you anywhere near her for the next 5 days. The second thing is, do not wear powdered gloves. That powder is spermicidal. What does that mean? It kills the sperm. Okay, blood is also spermicidal, so if she bleeds there after the mating, then expect a return to service and so on. Blood is also kills the sperm. But, so what you're doing is you put on an unpowdered glove, you put your hand upside down. Now his penis is here, and what you're doing is basically he's going to go down the top of your palm into the right spot. So you just guide him, you're just making a channel for the penis to go into the right spot. In there, first thing. Otherwise, he jumps up and he scratches. Some boars have got bad manners and they scratch the shit out of the sow's back and says, fuck it, I love this shit, and so on. So get him trained to do the job efficiently and so on. Make it pleasurable for all the parties involved, including yourself, and so on. Now, while he's busy doing foreplay there and so on, you've got your mating list in front of you. While he's doing foreplay, you can say, okay, 21 days ago, that sow was mated. Yeah, no, nothing on heat. 42 days ago, that sow was mated. No, it's not. Yep, tick, tick. One job done, three things in one job, and so on. But make it pleasurable and make it observed.
No, you didn't answer his question. He was saying, when you put it in with the sow and the ball, are you sure of a one-time success rate, or is it better to keep it?
You're never sure. Okay, especially heat, hot days. Even in New Zealand, which is shit cold. The northern part of New Zealand is under the southern part of Africa. It's closer to the South Pole. It's bloody cold. And even in there, in February, which is our hottest month, you get more returns of service and so on. And gilts, guys, if you buy a gilt from somebody and she doesn't get mated, don't hang on to her for a year and try. Guys, it is normal for between 10 and 30% of gilts not to get pregnant. It is a fact of life that some of them don't, and so on. Give them 2 chances. After that, send them to the abattoir and so on. Not like Dito, a year later, send them to the abattoir. By then she's eaten up 5 sows worth of food and he's got nothing from it and so on. But it is normal. But spot them. Make sure that your guys, guys, incentives are always good. If you give them a job, they might do it or not, and so on, or as soon as you turn your back, they go to his house and so on. But if you say, listen, every time you spot, especially your gilts, because you have sows you wean, you know when they come on heat, your gilts, if you spot a gilt on heat and get them mated successfully, 100 pull-up. It's a bargain for you, and it's a hell of an incentive for him. Checking those girls out, and so on. Give them incentives, guys.
Maybe before Stambo comes in, this issue of mating, we have another program, Basic Piggery Husbandry, where we actually show you the practicals, all that. So the mating session is there, it happens. You watch everything, and then in the end, there's something that comes that shows you that it was a successful mating session. Somebody brings out the white gel. Is it the he or the she?
The ball. Yeah. The ball screws in, puts the stuff in there, and then he puts a plug in there. That thick jelly and so on that comes out the back end. But guys, let's move on. Otherwise, we won't finish this. But as Richard said, the practical bits we will do on the farm on a different course. A few guys here have been there. So far, I think not one course we haven't had a sow to mate, and so on. But
we've always
had a
kept
sow ready.
Because
what we do instead of weaning on a Thursday to come on heat on Monday, we wean her on a Monday and she comes on heat on this Friday, Saturday for second mating and so on. But so Dr. Mbatsi and I have spoken many times. You saw the BOB standard. Now this is NRC, so this National Research Council, which is the authority on pig nutrition, or on anything with nutrition and so on. This is the authority in it. If you're looking at protein levels for creep, 23 to 25%. Where's Bob's? 19%. Wiener, 19 to 22%. They've got 18%. So you can see the Bob standards is way down there for what it should be.
Why?
Well,
to make it cheaper.
Maybe that's what the standards are made by a committee, and there's a piggery representative there. Yeah, but you might find that at the time there wasn't somebody who was competent enough to influence the proper standards. Yeah.
Guys, the day I graduated, you got hit on the head with a square hat, and you think, yes, I've made it, I'm God, I know everything. First day on the farm, oh shit, I know nothing. Most of the piggery officers are at that stage. They've qualified, they've got a degree, they've got a job at MAF, and the piggery officer in the area. But they're scared to put their toe out that door because some farmers can ask them a question that they can't answer. And they're scared of being found out, so they don't leave their office for anything, and so on. And yeah, so getting information is difficult, and getting the right information is even more difficult.
I think just as a thing, the BOP standards across all the animal feed things, some of Botswana, are way below what you should be doing. This not only applies to the pig feed. We have problems with the chicken feed, etc. So sometimes you'll probably find us not referring, like in this case, to the BOP standards, because they use the barest of the barest minimums, which is essentially keeping the pigs alive or keeping the chickens alive. And of course, a lot of the manufacturers, one of your most important expensive ingredients in your pig feed is the protein. So anything that is going to put a standards for them to reduce, they're going to actually go for the lowest to make the food cheaper. But it does not translate to the growth rates that you need. So if you are going to be following the current BOP standards, then I'll put my head on the block. We've been talking to them so many times that their standards are letting the industry down. They are way below par, way below what any piggery farmer should be using. Because it is part of this problem is that you as farmers then go and blame the feed manufacturer. Why don't they just simply say, follow BOPs? They should be, and you as consumers should be demanding that they are above BOPs. There's only one feed company, without necessarily marketing them, that has decided to change because of the science, and that is Tolo Holdings. They've looked at the science, Cobus has gone to them, they've seen it for where they should be, and yes, you will pay more, but the result is you will get more profit.
Cheap food is not cheap if it doesn't make your pigs grow.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so you can see the discrepancy between what NRC says and what BOP says. Okay, next one. Okay, now guys, a balanced diet. What does that mean? Now, we got guys who buy our grower, the balanced, perfect man will make your pigs grow like a racehorse, and then they go to Bollocks and they go and buy a bulk bag full of bran and they mix half, and now it's cheaper. Now it's not balanced anymore. That bran has got 11% protein, the grower's got 16, so you end up with 12.5. That's under sour. Now guys, nutrients work like this. It's like an old wine barrel. Your maximum production is at your first limiting nutrient. So if the lysine level is there and so on, now if it's here, if they're all here, they are all in the right ratio, what they should be. So it's not amounts, but it's the ratio of them is right. Okay, now if lysine is deficient, the water starts running out at that level. So now you put some lysine in and you lift it up to there. Now the water will gather up to there. Now the next limiting nutrient might be energy. So now you top it up there, but it's still not growing full barrel and so on. Then you lift your protein and now it's producing there. And then you've got your phosphate ratio right there and now you're producing at top. So if you haven't got a balanced diet, you are being stuck down the bottom here somewhere. And that's why they do not grow. Now guys, one of my other bugbears in life on Facebook and so on is fiber. Guys, why does goats and sheep and cattle have 4 stomachs? And you and us and chickens only have 1. Why do they need 3 extra stomachs? Why? What does those other 3 stomachs do?
break down the fiber?
They break down fiber. Now guys, you in your body have got enzymes to break down food, okay? And the enzymes that break down the carbohydrates, you've got all the enzymes that you've got fructose, lactose, all the sugars, starch and so on. You've got the enzymes that can break those down. But there's one, sugar, a cellulose, anything ending with the OSE at the end is a sugar or a chain of sugars and so on. So cellulose is a sugar. Now, if we had cellulase ending at the ASE, that's the enzyme that breaks down cellulose. No mammal has got cellulase. So how can a sheep? Now most of grass is cellulose. It's a fiber. And fibers are long chains of sugars. There's a shitload of energy in fiber, but it's bound in such strong chemical bonds that you don't have the enzymes to break those bonds. So you can't digest it. So all that fiber does for you is keep you from being constipated. Keeps things moving through. There's no nutrition in it for you. It just keeps things moving, which is very important. I won't tell my joke about the organs and so on. I was waiting for that. But yeah, it's pretty important for things to keep on moving through. Now the science, I left out last time. After looking for the baby's poos, look at the mum's poos. What should it look like and what should it not look like? Should not look like donkey poos, you know, those little round balls. That means it was dry and fell out like that. It's dry and it's hard and so on. It should be like a thick porridge, sort of falling in a bunch. It's sort of nice. It's not running, but sort of a thick porridge that stands together. That's perfect. So if you see hard poos, add more bran. The best thing to add actually and so on is what's it called? Magnesium. What's it?
Carbonate.
White stuff that you give your kids to drink. It's got,
okay. Milk of magnesia.
That's it. Milk of magnesia and so on. It absorbs more moisture and keeps her loose and so on. But extra bran helps if she's still eating, but even if she's already constipated, it doesn't solve the problem. It will prevent it if she's not quite there yet. So when you get within a week of farrowing and so on, either feed her with drop her food, add more bran and so on, or feeding lactation diet and so on. Or another way to, if she's already oil, just a cup of cooking oil, sunflower oil, any cheapest of the oils, on top of the food, and that will lubricate things and start it moving a bit through and so on. But it's a big problem is that constipation just before, just after, because if nothing is moving through here, nothing going in, no milk being produced, babies, everything suffer and big problems and so on. So limiting nutrient. Okay, next one. Other way.
5 more minutes.
Other way. Okay, yeah, so you were saying that why is there 4 extra stomachs and so on compared to a monogastric? I guess the next one. Okay, so guys, So guys, what we're using to measure energy is megajoules of energy. Now, there's different ways of measuring energy. You can use TDN, you can use digestible energy, you can use net energy and so on. But the gross energy basically means nothing. A log of wood has got more than 19 megajoules of energy, but if you feed that to your sow, it's not going to do anything. So it's not digestible. Okay, so gross energy doesn't help. Now, because there are more losses to that. The losses, the first one is fecal energy, the poos. So digestibility means what you feed minus what comes out is digestible. So that stays in the body, it's not passed out at the back and so on. But that is not all the losses that you have from food. There's also urine losses. So if you take, if you started with 19 megajoules and you take the fecal energy off, so you lose 7.4. The urinary from the urine and so on also got protein and some energy left in it. It's not completely used up by the pig, so you take that off as well. Then now the methane is a gas and it's very difficult to measure and so on. But if you take all of those off the gross energy, it leaves you with metabolizable energy. So if you take all those losses off, then you end it with metabolizable energy, and that's what we work with. There is a better one, which is net energy, but the thing that's not off here yet is the gas, and the heat loss. And heat loss is very, very variable, and it's very difficult to measure. So it's too expensive to work out, and it's too variable. It varies from day to day to day. So that's why we're working on metabolizable energy in measuring energy and so on. It might be a bit technical for some, but yeah, we'll move on. Okay, so this is what I said. So carbohydrates, with your maize, your sorghum, your barley, those kind of sources and so on, consist out of sugars, starch, and fiber. Now the fibers, cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, are not digestible by us, by pigs, by chickens. It can't be digested, and so on. And okay, lignin is totally undigestible. That's like wood. That's the reinforcing that keeps plants growing higher. Just like high-rise buildings, the more higher you want to go, the more reinforcing you put into the concrete. Lignin is the reinforcing to keep a barley plant and the seed head at the top upright so it doesn't fall over. So that's totally undigestible. These two are digestible ruminants. What breaks those chains for them? Those three chambers, that's where bacteria live. The bacteria break down the fiber for them. Then the bacteria and the food that they've now broken down moves through. And so cows and sheep, protein is not that important. They've got a built-in protein source. Those bacteria also become the protein for the cow. So they've got a built-in protein factory in there that breaks down their food and then become the food as well. And they multiply incredibly fast so they won't run out. But pigs, we don't have that. So we've got to feed there. The other thing, guys, is, okay, next one, is that the thing about fibrous food, so you're putting that extra bran from bollocks in there and so on, guys, it's faster just pour it in the drain at the end. It's much faster process that way and so on, because it can't be digested. So now you've got a wiener with a stomach the size of a golf ball, and you put 20% extra bran in there which you can't digest, so it grows that much slower. So just don't do it, please, and so on. The other thing, so apart from taking up the space, is that it moves through the pig slower. So instead of having 3 refills a day, it can only have 2 refills a day. All of that brings down the total intake, the total growth, and so on. Yet it's not rocket science. The more food you can put in it, and that it can digest, the faster your growth is going to be.
So you're delaying your piglet to grow.
It's pointless. Basically, what some of the guys are doing, they're buying bulk brand and they're buying concentrate. I mean, with all the license and the rest, and adding it to the brand, it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
They're actually not cheap.
It's like running a race car with 93 petrol instead of whatever they use, pure alcohol or whatever. Okay, so guys, the bran. What is bran? Bran is the outside covering here, and that is completely cellulose and so on. So in a maize pip, so they take this outside little skin off, and that's your maize bran. The inside bit, the orange bit here, is your starches, with the starch, and the germ, the little baby plant, that's where your DNA is. That's where the DNA is protein, and so on. So there's the protein in here. That is the starch. That's the energy source for the little baby plant. Mom sends him away with a lunchbox, so when he lands on the ground, he's got energy to put up a leaf and start getting sunlight and get some water and so on. That's his lunchbox that he goes away with, and so on. But when we want maize meal, we take that little crust off, because you don't want that fiber in your thingy when you're eating your white maize meal and so on. So that is your maize bran, and so on. Same with your wheat grain and so on. This wheat bran is that little outside skin, and it's cellulose, and pigs can't digest it. So don't put it. There's already enough in the food that the balanced ration. There is already fiber. Guys, there's fiber in soya. There's fiber in everything already, and we've put in a little bit extra just to keep things flowing. If you add now more, then you just put on the brakes. No, nothing happens growth-wise. Okay, next one. Now, this is a typical plant cell and a typical animal cell. An animal cell has got a cell membrane, a thin little thing like a balloon. That's why if you push a dent there, it dents, and you push it out and it pushes back in. You see, when you get old to my age, it comes back a bit slower, and so on. But it's pliable. It's like a balloon with water, and you can push a dent in and it pops out again. You try and do that with a tree trunk, push a dent in there, and not going to happen. So it's much sturdier. So this is a cell membrane. The plant also have a cell membrane, but outside of that they have a cell wall, which is totally cellulose. It's a structural material. It's the concrete that holds a cell together. And that is the cellulose, the hemicellulose, the lignin, and which is totally... Now if you dehydrate that thing and you take all the water out, about 75 to 80% of that weight excess without the water is cellulose. There's a bit of protein from the nucleus and there's a bit of starch and sugars in the cytoplasma and so on. But 70, 80% of it is cellulose. And that's why you don't feed extra bran. There's enough in it in a balanced diet already. Don't add anything more. Okay, the other thing is now if you go and look at the feeds out there, you won't see a lot of difference because it's the same ingredients in different ratios between the different. More soya, more protein, get more digestible for the creepers and so on, less in the dry cells. So it's same ingredients, bar one or two, but in different ratios. But you'll also see right in the beginning, sort of in February last year, a few guys complained, I don't know if you were one of them, Igor, that there were some whole pips. Now if you've put a handful of whole maize pips in your pig food, and you go and check their poos afterwards, you'll find all those pips in the poos. It goes right through the pig undigested. And so they put in new sieves and so on. Now you'll see it's a beautiful, even consistency and so on. Why is it important to grind your maize? And also in South Africa they buy number 3 maize, 3, which is a much coarser ground. It's more like chickens with crushed maize. Those big bits also go right through. You need to have it small enough because the surface area where enzymes can work on it is increased when you have smaller particles. So if you take this Rubik's Cube, the surface area of that, say each block is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, so the whole block has got 54 centimeters of surface area. But if you break that thing up into little ones, then you've got 162 square centimeters of surface area. So you see the smaller the particle is, the more the enzymes can get to it and suck out the nutrients out of it. That's why it's important, the consistency of the food.
So Tolo changed the mill, or that membrane that...
Yeah, so the sieve.
Finer, no, sieve.
A finer sieve, yeah. So the sieve is, with the hammer mill, the whole maize is here, the thing comes around, pushes it through the holes. They've got smaller holes for it to push through.
Some of the cheaper feed I've seen, what was it, agri-feed? I'm not sure, I forgot the manufacturer.
Just like, of course, like chicken food.
Bits of corn in it. I mean, how can pigs now...
That goes right through, it's wasted. You're wasting your time. Okay, so guys, this is how you should feed. So 2 to 2.5 kilos, depending on the sow's condition, coming out of weaning and so on, is what you feed. So this is after you've just mated it. So for the first 12.5 weeks and so on, or 4 weeks back from farrowing, all they need is 2.5 kilos, 2 to 2.5 kilos, depending on the sow's condition. The last 4 weeks, ladies, last trimester, you know what I'm talking about, the guys won't. The last trimester, the last third of pregnancy, 75% of the birth weight of the piggy is put on. Guys, in the last days, they're putting on like 100 grams a day. Now you all know that if you had one sow farrowing, you know the little ones, they die. The bigger ones, you haven't got any problem, they go, they find the teeth, they do their job, they grow and they're fine. So your losses is directly related to the birth weight. And guys, the good news is you are in control of the birth weight. How do you do that? You give them more food when they need it more. So in that last third of pregnancy, you step their food up from 2.5 to 3.5 kilos. But you increase their feeding level in the last 4 weeks, and you'll have heavier babies, more of them surviving, more of them growing better. So in the last 4 weeks. Then, as I said, on the day that she gives birth, you can't feed her 7 kilos, she can't eat it, well, don't want to anyway, they're tired and stressed and so on. But over the first week, you step them up slowly. Guys, if you don't have a scale or you don't have a cell feeder and so on, if you put food in the morning, sows, because you're feeding 7 kilos, if you feed them once, they're going to spill half of it and so on. So give them 2 or 3 feeds a day, at least 2. Feed them in the morning. By 3, 4 o'clock, just before knock off, they feed them again. If it's cleaned up, step it up. Then tomorrow morning, there should be a little bit of food left. If they polished the trough, what does that mean? They ran out somewhere during the night. So there should always, the next morning, be a little bit of, then you know you're feeding ad lib, and so on. And then you're getting maximum milk production, maximum baby growth, money, money, money going into your pocket, and so on. So step them up, and I said that level is 2 kilos for the sow, plus a half a kilo per piglet that she suckles. So if she's got 3 piglets, that's 1.5 plus 2, so you're feeding her 3.5 kilos, and so on. So, and then again, it's easier to say to you guys, that if this takes 2 kilos, 1 scoop for every 4 babies. If you say to them, give them half a kilo per thing there. But if you say you get 4 piglets, 1 scoop of feed, I mean, you're feeding this to the sow, but if she's got 4 babies, you've got 8 babies, 2 of those, and so on, then they're getting much closer to the level and so on. Then you're feeding at that top level at 7 kilos if it's 10 babies there. Now guys, weaning. People starve them before to dry them off and so on. Guys, piglets drink every 2 hours. You go and stand there and time them and so on. Every 2 hours she calls and they all run drinking. Why do they drink little bits often rather than a calf that drinks twice a day and so on? Is that a cow has got a big hollow cistern inside where they can build up milk. And they've got a teat system as well, which adds a little bit of volume. But they can store up so much and drink it in one big go. Pigs udder do not have that. They produce, and it's got to be drunk before they can produce again. So every 2 hours they drink. Now it's a pain in the ass when you've got a sow that dies or hasn't got milk and you've got to bottle feed the babies every 2 hours through the night. It's like raising children and so on. But so when you wean her that day, if you fed her 7 kilos that morning, she's producing 7 kilos worth of milk and so on. You've taken the babies away and she blows up like a balloon and you've got big trouble. Mastitis and other problems and so on. Guys, my son was thin and skinny but tall like that when he was born. My wife was a dairy cow like you can't believe. The health nurse said he was going like that and he was going like that. She was a dairy cow galore. But then he got sick and he wouldn't drink, and she said it was excruciating pain not being drunk out and so on. And the thing is, milking, getting the milk out of a sow's teats, you're getting the 20 mils from each teat, so it's hell of a time consuming extracting milk from a sow and so on. I've got a formula and so on for that. But anyway, so what I'm saying is she's used to being drunk out 2 hours. So in a 24-hour period, she's missed 12 milkings. She's dried off after 24 hours. It doesn't take 3-4 days like in a dairy cow and so on. It's because the dairy cow drinks twice a day. These guys drink 12 times a day, so they dry off a lot quicker. So the day that you wean her, just give her 1.5 or 2 kilos or 1.5 plus a scoop of bran or something and so on to help her dry off. So now that she's produced less because you fed her less that day, just for that day, and so on. She's dried off, and then you step her up to 4 kilos. Why do you step her up now? In those 4 days when she's in between being weaned and fallow again, why do you step her up again then?
So being weaned and mated.
Yeah, between weaning and remating. Flushing. But we all know cows, sheep, and so on, you know how to flush them. And basically flushing works like that. You give them a higher, a rising plane of nutrition. And it works a bit like this, even with sheep and so on. You can have a thinner sheep and you give her a rising plane of nutrition and she thinks, that's getting better and better. By the time the baby gets here, there's going to be lots of food, so she does get pregnant. Or if you feed her less and so on, you think, oh, things are getting worse and worse. Why get pregnant? There's going to be no food by the time the baby comes. And then even if she's better body condition, if she drops in nutrition, she doesn't get pregnant. So flushing her means she produces more eggs. which means you can have more babies and so on. So during that, so drop her there, dry her off, step her up to 4 kilos so she produces more eggs, mate her, and of course after mating drop her back to a level which she will stay on the rest of the. So that's basically self-feeding.
You have the same graph for the little ones coming up.
No, so the graph for the babies is that red one with the growth rates, weekly basis and so on.
The ones with the one with the red boxes and all, you didn't have the numbers like this to say so many per kilogram.
Yeah, no, so that's for week for that week and so on. They're eating 1.18 kilograms, 1.18 and so on, but it's per day. So you multiply that by 7, and then for the second one they eat 1.3 kilos times 7. You add those all up and
Were
so
the
on.
numbers there? I don't think I saw them. Were they there?
Yeah, in that first that red one. Guys, self-feeder, 1 slab of Chatterply, 18 mil. You cut it, okay, it's 1.2 wide by 2.4. You cut it 80, 80, 80. Okay? This one is the back. This one is the diagonal. That is the 2 sides. And what's rest, okay, you've got to join them and so on, but that forms the bottom. This here is a rafter, so 114 by 38 in there. The important bit at the bottom here, 5 centimeters from the back and 5 centimeters from the floor, you've got a gap. So the feet fall through there, comes out here. And the only thing I haven't got in here, I used to put in 4 threaded rods to make 3 threaded rods, which makes 4 compartments, feeding compartments. I'm now putting in 5. Well, 5 feeding compartments, 4 things. So it's a little bit smaller like that. If you don't put those in, they don't spill it out here. They push it to the side and then it overflows from the corners. But if you've got those in, no spillage. You can put 150 kilos of there and that's food. So it's 24/7, there's food in front of them whenever they feel like it. They never fight, they're never hungry, and so on. And you can basically fill it up Friday afternoon and fill it up again on Monday, and so on. 1 sheet of Chatterply. I use aluminium 4x4 angle iron, just bolted together like that. A piece of rafter there and a 38 by 38 there, knocked together in hour, and so on. Dieter up in Gagansi actually makes them for sale, but yeah, very easy to make yourself and so on. We've been using ours. When I suggested, the first people said that's going to fall apart, the pigs are going to eat it up. We've been using ours for 3 years. They're as good as the day I started. How much have I got left?
Do you need to hold them onto the wall?
Well, you can actually make a double-sided one. So you've got 2 there with feeding on both sides, and you can actually put it between 2 pens. And these guys eat here and these guys eat here, so that's also possible. But yeah, it's better against the wall and so on. And it also takes a small space out of your pen's surface area and so on. Okay.
And the advantage is that the guy just empties 1 or 2 bags into it. He doesn't have to come again to, that day.
And he also doesn't have to measure off and all those kind of things.
There's no measuring off. Yeah.
All you've got to see is that there's food in there all the time. Okay, that I can leave. Otherwise, we're gonna. So here's those numbering system again. Remember, 1s and 10s on this side. So 1 is 1 little notch at the top. 2 is 2 notches. 3 is at the tip. 4 is a 3 and a 1. 5 is just under the tip. 6 is a 5 and a 1, and so on. And on the 10 side, the same on this side, just with a 0 on it, and so on. Yeah, so if you're not 100% sure about that, I'll give you the handouts to do those.
Yeah, but you also, this you do as a